morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a look at a winning Sylveon and Gardevoir list. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I told you that I would be looking for a Sylveon and Gardevoir list because I told you I did a video the other day. I'll pop a link in the description. That this is crushing in Japan, but I didn't have a list, and I told you that when I got a list, I would share the list with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I have two. I'm going to show you them both in this video. We're going to be focusing largely on the one that went and won the City League in Tokyo. So what do we see here? Well, the deck is built around Sylveon and Gardevoir Tag Team GX. Now, this has got 260 HP, which is incredibly high. And the main attack we're using here for free energy does 150 damage and then lets you move your fairy energy around, in fact, any of your energy around the board as you like. Now, you're not getting a huge amount of one-hit KOs here. You'll be getting some one-hit KOs here and there. But generally speaking, you're hitting for 150 and going, you know what? I don't think you're going to be able to one-hit KO me. And if you can't one-hit KO me, then gutted, quite frankly. Now, the first attack is good in the early game, because you generally don't have any energy acceleration other than this, so it lets you search your deck for 2 fairy energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like, and that's fine. It's okay. It's not a stunning attack, it's not a brilliant attack, it's quite nice in the early game to help yourself get set up, but it's not a game changer here. It's not going to win you the game. But early game to get some energy on the field, it's quite good. But mostly it's free energy, 150, and then move your energy. Because essentially what you do, if you don't think you're going to get KO'd next turn, you keep the energy. If you do think you're going to get KO'd next turn, then you move the energy to another one of your Pokemon to preserve it. Or if you think you're going to play an Ace Roller, etc., then you move the energy to preserve it. And that's largely the plan here. Except then at some point during the game, what you do is you use the GX attack. And the GX attack here is kind of over the top brilliant in this particular deck. And this allows you to do 200 damage, but if you've got an extra free energy attached, then you can force your opponent to shuffle their hand into their deck. Meaning that they then don't have any cards, so they can't do anything. That's pretty good. And that's your attacker here. And the deck is built just with this in mind. There are no other attackers in this deck. There are 2 support Pokemon, and there are no other attackers whatsoever. You've just got this. The other key Pokemon we've got here is Ribombee. Ribombee's ability is phenomenal. It stops effects of supporter cards done to your fairy Pokemon. But really here, it stops Guzma. The whole point of this is that it stops Guzma. So now your opponent has no choice but to attack Sylveon and Gardevoir. And you've got 260 HP, so they're probably not getting a one-hit KO. And then you can Ace Roller and Max Potion. And you are playing Ace Roller and Max Potion here, and you are playing a Power Pad to reuse your Ace Roller. What's different about this deck from what we saw before, there's one other Pokemon, and it's Jirachi. Jirachi is flat out, hands down, one of the most phenomenal cards to come out of what is going to be Team Up over here. The ability says that if you're in the active, you may look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and then you can put a trainer card that you find there into your hand. It's Redonk. And then, of course, you have to go to sleep when you do this, but it doesn't really matter because you're playing a skateboard, and a skateboard reduces your retreat by 1 and lets you retreat while asleep. And that's it in terms of the Pokemon here. You've got Gardevoir and Sylveon to attack. You've got Ribombee. You've got Jirachi. There are no other Pokemon. Now, what is very awkward is that your opponent can Guzma Jirachi because it's not a fairy Pokemon. So you need to be extremely careful. But it doesn't really matter, like I explained in my other video. If you have 2 non-GXs taken out, your opponent has still got to KO 2 Tag Team GXs, so just make sure that if your opponent takes down 2 Rabombi, you don't play Jirachi. If your opponent takes out 1 Rabombi, by which I mean Cutiefly before it evolves, then you can play down 1 Jirachi. And the rest of this deck is just built to slow your opponent down. So I've already mentioned Ace Roller, Power Pad and Max Potion, but we also see Choice Helmet here, reducing damage done to your Pokemon by 30 from attacks from EX and GX Pokemon. Now this is especially awesome here because the chances are your opponent isn't going to get a one-hit KO on Sylveon and Gardevoir. But if they do, it's going to have to be from an EX or a GX that can really just smash and do a whole bunch of damage. Well, great news, this means they're doing 30 less damage. But this is not the most impactful tool in this deck, because you are playing Fairy Charm, but there's only one Fairy Charm being played, and it's Fairy Charm UB, which means that the Fairy Pokemon to which it is attached takes no damage from attacks from Ultra Beasts. Now this is strange, this is not one of the ones that I was informed was seeing a lot of play in Japan, but it did see play in this deck and it did win the City League in Tokyo. So it basically gives you immunity from Ultra Beast, and basically here we're thinking Blacephalon, we're thinking Buzzwole. It will mean you get immunity from Duskmane Necrozma, which is kind of cool because that's hitting you for weakness. So it's just there to counter those, but it is the only Fairy Charm being played here. Now what's also kind of cool, we do see a couple, or at least one copy of Adventure Bag, which lets you search out your tools, because of course you're playing Choice Helmet and Fairy Charm UB. You're against Blacephalon, you want the Fairy Charm. You're against a non-Ultra Beast EX or GX, you want the Choice Helmet. And you might be thinking, yeah, Wassy, but won't your opponent just drop a Field Blower? No! Because remember, your GX attack puts them down to a 0-card hand, so the chances are they're not going to have a Field Blower. Because they're not going to have any cards. Which means they're going to have to naturally draw into it, which they're probably not going to do, which is going to be hilarious if you're the person playing Gardevoir and Sylveon. Probably slightly less hilarious if you're the player playing against Gardevoir and Sylveon. And then we just see one copy, because you're only allowed to play one copy, of Wonder Labyrinth Prism Star. This is the Fairy Prism Star Stadium, which says that all attacks from non-fairy Pokemon cost 1 colorless energy more. So now you're blocking attacks, you're making them hit the Pokemon you've got in the active, which they're probably not going to one-hit KO. They're not having a hand because you've played your GX attack, and then you're increasing the cost of their attacks. And yeah, fine, they can play their own stadium to get rid of this, except remember how I said they were going to have a 0-card hand? Yeah, they're going to have a 0-card hand. Whoopsie daisy. Now, in terms of the other cards here, if we look at supporter cards, we see 4 Cynthia, 3 Lily. They are generally the best draw supporters. 3 copies of Guzma. Drag Pokemon off the bench to attack, especially if they've got no energy attached. But it also acts as a switch, which Jirachi is going to love. We see 3 copies of Team Rocket's Trickery. It's a judge to 5. Both players shuffle their hand into their deck and draw a new hand of 5 cards. This is pretty good. Now, we've not gotten this card outside of Japan, and we're not going to. You could sub in a judge. It's a way to disrupt them a little bit and force them to have a new hand, while not disrupting yourself quite as much in the process. We then see 3 copies of Ultra Ball, 3 copies of Nest Ball to get set up, and 4 copies of Switch because of the whole Jirachi thing. Switch into Jirachi, escape board out of it. Wonderful for making sure you get things like your Max Potion and your Pal Pad and your Fairy Charms at the right time. And then finally we see 1 copy of Viridian Forest. Yeah, sure, you have to discard a card from your hand, but it also lets you search for a basic energy. It's good basic energy search on a stadium, as well as being a counter stadium to other Prism Star stadiums like Thunder Mountain, for instance. It's a very, very nice card. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the deck. Here's the list. It's a very, very good list. It is very minimalist in terms of Pokemon, but it does what it's supposed to do. You can't KO Sylveon and Gardevoir, so I'm just going to sit in the active, hit for 150, and if you're about to KO me, I can Max Potion, I can Ace Roller, I can switch to the bench, etc. Now, we do have a second list here. This got second place in Osaka. It did lose to Pikachu and Zekrom in the final. I'm going to show you that deck list in a couple of days. And it's a largely similar deck. The main differences here, we've got a copy of Mina, which is just there to search your deck for an extra fairy energy and attach it. Just get you going a little bit faster. We have 3 different fairy charms. We've got the UB like we mentioned, and then we've got Lightning, helps against stuff like Pikachu and Zekrom, and we've got Ability to help against Pokemon with abilities like Zoroark. I did go through these in the previous video. They were the ones that I was expecting to see. Turns out UB was actually played in both of these decks. That makes me think it's probably quite good. And then 1 copy of Xerneas Prism Star. It's a non-GX Pokemon that moves energy to it and then smashes. It's pretty nice. I love playing this as a one-of in fairy decks. There's no Jirachi here because you don't want your opponent to be able to Guzma it up. I like both of these lists. Now you've got 2 of them, you can make a decision as to which one you want to play. And now it is time to tell me what you think about these. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! But please do remember the most important rule as always. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays. We are in the middle of Transformers Wave 2 spoiler season, but don't worry, I've got some Keyforge videos coming very soon as well. I ain't forgotten. But by far the most important thing as always is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross and you've been watching PTCG Radio.